Welcome to CG Tutorial, where we give truth a chance to fight in a world drowning in political hogwash. We're thrilled to have you join us on this intellectual journey. Whether you're just someone curious or a student of the forces shaping our world, this video is for you. Buckle up, because we're about to dissect Keynesian economic theory. Get ready to challenge your preconceptions and expand your understanding. Let's get ready to rumble. We're diving deep into Keynesian economics, examining its strengths, its weaknesses, and its impact on today's world. So grab your notebooks, open your minds, and let's embark on this journey together. British economist and bureaucrat John Maynard Keynes is the darling of deficit spenders and government interventionists everywhere. Keynes began his civil service career in 1909 as a clerk in the India Office. In 1915, Keynes took up an official government position at the Treasury. There, among his responsibilities, were the design of terms of credit between Britain and its continental allies during the war and the acquisition of scarce currencies. Keynes developed the first upper-lower probabilistic interval approach to probability. His magnum opus, The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money, was published in early 1936. Keynes played a crucial role in the British Treasury, helping to design the financial systems that supported the war effort. He was instrumental in negotiating the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944, which established the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank, shaping the post-war global economic order. He is known as the father of macroeconomics. Some, however, believe Keynes was more of a statesman than a real economist, a government bureaucrat who was really good at making mechanisms designed to ensure that the government would always have funding. Anyways, it's undeniable that his theories have shaped modern economic policy. But are they really as sound as they seem? Killing Your Future Softly, or How to Bankrupt a Nation with Style. John M. Keynes. The name is practically synonymous with government spending, economic intervention, and dare I say it, economic chaos. This is the very guy who gave politicians the intellectual cover to spend money like it's going out of style. Consequences be damned. Keynes's central thesis, if you can call it that, is that governments should spend big, especially during recessions, to stimulate demand and boost the economy. Sounds simple in theory, right? Just ignore that pesky little thing called debt. After all, in the long run, we're all dead, right, Keynes? More on that later. Keynes's ideas were born out of the Great Depression, a time when traditional economic theories seemed to fail. People were desperate, economies were collapsing, and something had to be done. Keynes proposed that during such dire times, the government should step in and spend money to create jobs and stimulate demand, and wealth would just miraculously come into existence. This was revolutionary, and it worked to some extent, pulling economies out of the abyss. However, it needs deeper analysis, as this has led to ballooning national debts and deficits that are difficult to manage. Economist Milton Friedman argued that Keynesian economics encourages reckless spending and that changes in the total money supply have a bigger impact on economic activity than just the availability of credit. Let's analyze it a bit further. Government spending, the Keynesian magic money tree. Here's the thing about Keynesian economics. It relies on this adorable belief that governments have some magical money tree they can shake whenever the economy gets a little sniffly. Print more money, run massive deficits. Keynesian economics supposedly works best during economic recessions or depressions, when there is insufficient aggregate demand. In such times, government intervention through increased public spending and tax cuts can stimulate demand and reduce unemployment. This approach is particularly effective in situations where there is a liquidity trap, with very low interest rates rendering monetary policy ineffective. It also helps when there are underutilized resources, such as unemployed labor and underused capital, that can be mobilized through increased demand. But remember, Keynesian measures are designed basically for short-term economic stabilization. Just as taking out a small credit during an emergency and diligently repaying it is responsible, but habitually being in debt and maxing out your credit card is irresponsible, so too is the application of Keynesian policies. They depend on the government's capacity to borrow and spend without compromising fiscal sustainability. Countries with higher levels of existing public debt should stay away from this, and habitual reliance on such policies can lead to unsustainable debt levels and economic instability. Never mind that reckless spending inevitably leads to inflation, devalues currency, and saddles future generations with mountains of debt. Hey, why worry about the future when you can just print your way out of problems today? It's not like those future generations can vote, right? The long run is coming. Keynes's convenient disregard for the future. Speaking of the future, remember that whole in the long run, we're all dead quip? Yeah, Keynes actually said that. It's basically the intellectual equivalent of eating an entire cheesecake in one sitting because, hey, you might get hit by a bus tomorrow. The problem is economies, unlike cheesecakes, don't get eaten in a day. The consequences of reckless spending and inflationary policies don't magically disappear just because we might not be around to see them. This cavalier attitude towards the future is the hallmark of Keynesian economics, and it's a recipe for disaster. The free market strikes back. Why Keynesianism keeps failing. Here's the thing about Keynesian economics. It looks great on paper, but falls apart spectacularly when applied in the real world. Time and time again, we've seen Keynesian policies lead to inflation, economic stagnation, and a whole host of unintended consequences. While the Keynesian perspective suggests public debt isn't problematic because it's owed within the country, this view overlooks key challenges. Raising taxes to service debt imposes a burden on taxpayers and creates an excess burden, as higher taxes may discourage work and taxable savings, distorting economic activity. This can force further tax increases, creating a vicious cycle. Additionally, increased interest income can push households into higher tax brackets, facing steeper rates. These effects, especially in countries with progressive tax systems, chip away at national income and savings, making debt management a real party for the economy. From the stagflation in the USA and UK in the 1970s, Japan's lost decade in the 1990s, the European debt crisis, to Argentina's economic woes, we can all thank Keynesian policies for their stellar track record. These examples vividly illustrate the undeniable pitfalls of Keynesian economics when it comes to managing long-term economic stability, inflation, and public debt. Bravo, Keynes, for this legacy of economic headaches. Critics argue that while Keynesian measures can be effective in the short term, they very often lead to adverse outcomes if not complemented by structural reforms and prudent fiscal management. You just cannot spend more than you earn and expect to be able to sustain the thriftlessness forever. When a government does it, it usually means taxpayers are indirectly being robbed of their hard-earned money via the indirect tax of inflation. The free market, for all its flaws, has a remarkable ability to self-correct and innovate. Keynesian intervention, on the other hand, often throws a wrench in the gears, distorting markets and stifling growth. It's like trying to fix a clock with a sledgehammer. You might stop the ticking, but you're not going to make it tell time any better. Beware the Kool-Aid. Don't fall for the Keynesian trap. Keynesian economics has become a kind of intellectual Kool-Aid, particularly in government circles. As you know, there's a high degree of correlation between the quality of policymakers of a nation and its economic progress. So, a nation wallowing in poverty seldom has leaders with actually lofty or righteous goals, but so far, we have ascribed only noble and altruistic aspirations to the policymakers. Ergo, we need to also talk about how a corrupt government might benefit from Keynesian economics. They might do so by exploiting increased public spending for personal gain. By directing large amounts of government funds towards projects and programs, officials could siphon off money through inflated contracts, kickbacks, and other forms of corruption. The emphasis on fiscal stimulus provides numerous opportunities for misallocation and embezzlement, as the government has greater control over economic resources. Additionally, the focus on short-term economic boosts might allow corrupt officials to appear effective and win public support while masking long-term economic issues and fostering dependency on government intervention. This misuse of Keynesian principles can lead to an entrenched cycle of corruption and inefficiency, ultimately harming the economy and society. These types of things regularly happen in third-world socialist countries, where government is run by leaders who see themselves as more like a know-it-all patriarch than an elected servant of the public. So whatever you do, don't drink the Keynesian Kool-Aid. Eugenics and economics. A disturbing connection. Now, before you accuse me of being unfair to dear old Maynard, let's talk about something truly disturbing. Keynes wasn't just an economist with a penchant for reckless spending. There's a darker side to his legacy. He was also a big fan of eugenics, a movement that has left a stain on history. Yes, you heard that right. It's a significant part of his life and beliefs. Keynes was a member of the Eugenics Society and even served as its director. For those who don't know, eugenics is the deeply flawed and morally reprehensible idea that you can improve the human race through selective breeding. It's the kind of thinking that led to forced sterilizations and other horrific practices. Make of it what you will. So there you have it, folks. John Maynard Keynes, economic genius, fan of eugenics, and all-around bad news for sound economic policy. Here at CJEE Tutorial, we're committed to fighting back against economic illiteracy, one debunked theory at a time. We believe in free markets, individual liberty, and most importantly, telling the truth, even when it's about a revered figure like John Maynard Keynes. Join us, won't you? The truth is out there, waiting to be discovered. And it's definitely not found in the writings of John Maynard Keynes.